Saint Vincent was born of poor parents in the village of Puy in Gascony, France, about 1580. He enjoyed his first schooling under the Franciscan fathers at Accuse. Such had been his progress in 4 years that a gentleman chose him as sub-preceptor to his children, and he was thus enabled to continue his studies without being a burden to his parents. In 1596, he went to the University of Toulouse for theological studies, and there he was ordained priest in 1600. In 1605, on a voyage by sea from Marseille to Narbonne, he fell into the hands of African pirates and was carried as a slave to Tunis. His captivity lasted about 2 years, until divine providence enabled him to effect his escape. After a brief visit to Rome, he returned to France, where he became preceptor in the family of Emmanuel de Gondi, Count of Goigny, and General of the Galleys of France. In 1617, he began to preach missions, and in 1625, he laid the foundations of a congregation which afterward became the Congregation of the Mission or Lazarists, so named on account of the priory of St. Lazarus, which the fathers began to occupy in 1633. The deathbed confession of a dying servant opened Vincent de Paul's eyes to the crying spiritual needs of the peasantry of France. This seems to have been a crucial moment in the life of the man from a small farm in Gascony, France, who had become a priest with little more ambition than to have a comfortable life. The Countess de Gondi, whose servant he had helped, persuaded her husband to endow and support a group of able and zealous missionaries who would work among poor tenant farmers and country people in general. Vincent was too humble to accept leadership at first, but after working for some time in Paris among imprisoned galley slaves, he returned to be the leader of what is now known as the Congregation of the Mission, or the Vincentians. These priests, with vows of poverty, chastity, obedience, and stability, were to devote themselves entirely to the people in smaller towns and villages. It would be impossible to enumerate all the works of this servant of God. Charity was his predominant virtue. It extended to all classes of persons, from forsaken childhood to old age. The Sisters of Charity also owe the foundation of their congregation to Saint Vincent. In the midst of the most distracting occupations, his soul was always intimately united with God. Though honored by the great ones of the world, he remained deeply rooted in humility. The Apostle of Charity, the immortal Vincent de Paul, breathed his last in Paris at the age of 80 in 1660. Saint Vincent de Paul is among the incorruptibles. The incorruptibles are Catholic saints whose bodies show no decay after the death. The incorruptibles are a consoling sign of Christ's victory over death, a confirmation of the dogma of the resurrection of the body, a sign that the saints are still with us in the mystical body of Christ, as well as a proof of the truth of the Catholic faith, for only in the Catholic Church do we find this phenomenon. On the 13th of August 1729 he was declared blessed by Pope Benedict XIII. He was canonized nearly 8 years later by Pope Clement XII on the 16th of June 1737.